Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is Brother T checking in with you out there. Thanks so much for being online with us tonight on YouTube. We are live streaming from Nashville, Tennessee. And we're just kind of getting started. We're going to be obviously talking about A Course in Miracles. And this is the issue, I should say, the version of the book that we're going to be talking about. It's called we call it the Black Pearl version, but this is really the Your Text version. The Your Text version was the original transcript as it was scribed. And for those of us that may not be familiar with that was scribed by Helen Schachtman in 1965, 1972, and it was a channeled work, and she was being informed by Jesus Christ. So that's kind of weird, right? Had you heard that before, Gary?
Oh, yeah.
You heard that before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Helen Schachtman later, after 1972, worked with Ken Wapnick, and they started to structure it with headings and subheadings and things like that. But they ended up taking out about 25% of the book out of the first 5 chapters or so. So later, the Your Text version became available as not copyrighted. The first versions, the Foundation for Inner Peace version of the Blue Book, was actually a copyrighted work. And later that was, by court decision, tossed out because a copy of the Your Text version had been given to the public domain through a university back in the early 70s. So once that precedent had been set, then, well, the good news is we get to study any version that we want to. So hello and welcome. Thanks for being with us tonight. We're going to be talking about the Black Pearl version. We're going to be talking about Course in Miracles. Not sure exactly where we might go tonight. We have some people here with us and live, and also for you that are out there as well, whenever you may be checking this out. So if you want to leave some comments on the screen, that would be cool, and maybe we'll take those up. We won't be doing this next week because it's going to be Thanksgiving. So I got my Thanksgiving outfit on tonight. I'm all dressed up for you, right? So we're going to have some fun. So I like to start out by saying hello to the people that are here live in the studio. And both of you that are here tonight, you have been studying, you've studied this before. Have you ever studied it, Gary?
I got the blue book, and then I've come back and I got this one here.
Okay, so you got the blue book, and so now you have the black version, the Black Pearl version. So I'm going to also intimidate you guys as well by giving you a microphone so that the people at home can actually hear you whenever you have a comment. And you may not have a comment, but you may also have a comment. So here we go. So come on up and join us. Anyway, again, I want to say thank you to everyone that's at home. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're having a great week this week and next week for the holiday season. My name is Brother T, and I'm just excited to be with you tonight. I believe this is episode 12 of A Course in Miracles, and we have some other stuff that's out there on the website. If you want to find us, you can go to TrueMindShift.com, and that'll take you directly to the YouTube page, and there you can just check out the videos that we've got there. So share it with friends if you find value, let it change you. Hopefully you'll share this with some people. It's starting to get some legs. We're going to break it up, though. We've been teaching about an hour and a half each week here live, but that's kind of difficult if you're sitting at home or you're watching on YouTube, and I know a lot of you today would rather do like 5 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe 10 or 12. And so we'll break some of that up, and we'll see how that works as we are talking through tonight. So I like to start out by saying, if you could talk to an enlightened master, okay, what kind of questions would you ask? Let's say that tonight you have access to an enlightened master. I'm not saying I'm an enlightened master, but you never know. What kind of questions would you ask an enlightened master? Or really, because since Jesus was the one who communicated this document, it's 3 books. It's a textbook, it's a workbook, and it's a manual for teachers. So if you could talk to Jesus or an enlightened master, and they were available to you tonight, what would you ask them? What question would come to mind? Don't be shy. Pick up the microphone and say something. I know you want to say something.
Yeah, why is there so much violence in the world when we should be living in a world of a golden opportunity of love, peace, prosperity for everyone?
Good question. So why is there so much violence in the world? Well, have you ever been to an insane asylum?
No, and I hope not to go.
Okay. Well, if you did go and people were violent, would you think that they were guilty of their actions?
No, I probably think they're just insane.
They're probably just insane. So could we say that they are innocent by reasons of insanity?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay. So if you go to a place where people are kind of insane, how would you expect them to act? A little insane?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Insane.
So does their action define who they really are? Or is it possible that their mind is just confused and they're actually just acting out thoughts that they're having that aren't really real thoughts because they're kind of just making shit up? Did I say shit? Yeah, I said shit. So they're just making stuff up, right? And they're acting out based on constructs within their mind that says this is the way things are. And so they need to defend themselves because most likely they're acting out of fear. People that are acting in violence are acting out there's only possibly one of two things that we can ever do, right? We can either be crying for love or we can be extending love. Okay? Now, that begs the question, is it possible for somebody to do something that would be seen as violent, that would be loving?
I guess that's a possibility.
So let's say that you were, let's just make something up. Let's say that you were a jiu-jitsu master and somebody was attacking someone who was innocent and you just happened to be in the area where that's going on. Let's say you're a grocery store and somebody comes in and there's some young woman that's behind the counter and this person comes in and their intention is to cause harm. And you're right there. And you, as a jiu-jitsu master, would have the ability to arrest that person physically so that they couldn't cause any harm. But if somebody looked at the video, let's say there was a video, it might look like that you were being violent. Would you be doing that out of love or fear or hatred or anger or insanity? Or would you just simply be standing for integrity, and that in itself is an act of love? What would you say?
I'd probably be acting an act of love.
So describe that for me. How is that how is an act of violence act of love?
Well, hopefully I wouldn't have to get that way with my more into controlling the person, having them on the ground where they can't hurt no one else and you don't have to hurt them. That's the ultimate goal.
Right. But so you would only use, as a jiu-jitsu master, I'm assuming that you, being trained in the martial arts, would only be responding in a way that was loving and compassionate, maybe even a little empathetic, but you would certainly not allow somebody to be doing some harm to somebody else.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. So the person, however, that's causing this calamity, this situation, they could really just be at their last wits, and who knows, what goes on. I mean, the person that flew the airplane into the building actually believed that that was the best thing they could do at that moment. We're all just doing the very best we can in each and every moment. But we might be constructing ideas in our mind, or we might be led by others to construct ideas in our mind about control or about worship. There have been many acts that have happened historically that we look back on and go, oh, that's atrocious. I mean, and it was done in the name of Jesus, or religion or whatever. But these are constructs of thought, right? And when we look back on some of that now, we can say, well, that's kind of insane, right? And they were acting out of some idea of a God or an entity that required certain behaviors or for people to worship or whatever. And so they were acting out in a way that we could look back on and say, well, that wasn't rational. It wasn't loving. But what we learn from A Course in Miracles is that there's only two options that you have, literally, each and every one of us. We're either crying for love or we're extending love, right? And we could say, for talking purposes, that the mind is really kind of split. And so on one side, we could say there's love, and this is the mind that's joined because God created you. You cannot be separate. You cannot be alone. That's impossible because you are an idea in the mind of God, an idea of love joined in mind, in spirit, with God as love. But when the mind became split, if you will, then we created a construct around an idea of fear, that we had done something wrong. There's also guilt involved in that. We've done something wrong. The Garden of Eden is that story, that metaphor, that we could do something that God would judge us for, right? Because we separated. So there's a separate self, and that self says, I'm separate, I'm alone. And it's just me against the world. I mean, it's a construct of thought. So we could call this one thought system. And I'm going to say of the world. And then there's another thought system. And so this is thoughts of, we could say God, we could say spirit, we could say love. It's the best we can do in really trying to describe God or, give some definition, some construct of God, made up with a little mind, which is really just a sliver. And this is just a thinking self. And we could say it's a small self. And this is a knowing self. And that would be a capital S self. And in A Course in Miracles, Jesus refers to this as the higher self or the Holy Spirit. But he also says that it's nothing more than your right mind. It's your true self. So this is really you, and this is almost like the imposter, right? This is like a made-up self. And one of the best ways for us to grasp it is to see that we have a sleeping self, right, at night that is completely unaware that we're safe at home in bed. Is it not? Has no idea that we're safe at home in bed. And all night long, we're kind of peering in on its drama, dream, and the dreamscape that it creates. So you're the one in there. I mean, you create all of it out of your pure imagination, right? And you can experience fear and guilt and maybe even being separate, but you can also, experience, some things that are kind of make you happy. You can seem to be having some, joyous experiences in your dreams at night too. But when you wake up, what happens to that mind, that self? I mean, it has no idea of the life you have, little pieces of it, but it doesn't really know what you're going to do all day today. It didn't even know what town you were sleeping in. It didn't even know you were sleeping. But you were there watching the dreams. And so you're kind of like a bigger self looking in on this little sleeping self. So this is you looking at another little smaller sliver of mind. And that little thinking self, it's also this little sleeping self, is just making a lot of shit up, right? All kinds of drama, right? But where are you really? Safe at home in bed. And no matter what happens, if you experience violence there, well, I'll just talk to myself. I've had some dreams that were violent. I mean, people were being hurt, right? Or I was going to get hurt, and I'm just trying to run away or get out of that situation, whatever it might be, right? So, when I woke up, I could have asked myself, if all I want to really experience is love and joy and peace, why would I have all these dreams of violence? I mean, if that's really all I care about, if that's really what I want, how could a part of me be experiencing violence? Making violence up. That's not my intention. Not when I go to sleep, of course. I'm just hoping for a good night's sleep. But here I am tossing and turning. There's something going on in my thought system. Remember, it's a thought system of the world. And so I'm actually creating experiences that mimic this self, the awakened self experience in the world. I'm playing out those dramas, going over those over and over. Right? So, is this self sane? It's just a little sliver. It doesn't even know what your life's about. It may not know that you're married or not married. It may not know that you have kids or not have kids. It may not know that the people that have passed away in your experience are not passed away, and they're showing up in your dream, and you don't even have any idea that they've ever passed away. You're having conversations with yourself. And you're projecting them in the dream. All of the characters that are showing up in your dream are a projection of what? Your imagination. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of a crazy little self because it's just making stuff up. It's creating stuff that appears to be real as an experience out of a construct of imagination, and then saying that it's real. And all night long, it's very convincing until I do what? I begin to wake up. Now, I'm not going to go back to sleep tonight and go fix let's say I had a bad experience last night. Would I go back in there tonight and try to fix it? Or would you? You wouldn't waste your time even thinking about it, would you? Why not? Because it's just a dream. It's just illusion. Can we say that? It's just made up, right? Did anybody really get hurt?
No.
Did anybody really get married or, was anything really that you can grab out of that dream and bring it and say, oh, it was real? Any of it? I mean, I know we like to interpret our dreams and say, oh, that's pointing towards something. Because this self is, the thinking self is really creative. And so it'll say, oh, there's a dot, and there's a dot, and there's a dot. These two dots are connected. I'm sure of it. And then later on, somebody comes along and goes, no, they really weren't connected at all. A doesn't lead to B, it leads to C, leads to D. We are linear. This mind is linear and believes everything, A causes B causes C, if this, then that. But the world is just reflecting. What is it reflecting? Thoughts. So whatever we're experiencing right now is a reflection of a thought. So if you had a thought earlier today that said, I'm going to go over to the center tonight and maybe I'll go over there and see what's going on and participate in this course group or whatever and see what's happening. And there it is. You created it. Because you're a creator. This is the creator self here. Because you're one with the creator mind, you're creating all of it. And so in the sleeping self, it's pretty easy to see how we created all that construct. But in this state of consciousness of the world, it looks like it's real. It's not like the dream, but Didn't the dream seem real? Would you argue with yourself that, oh, I mean, you might have had a lucid dream and woke up in the middle of the dream and go, wait a minute, I'm just dreaming. I can fly. I can do anything I want to. This is cool. There's no boundaries. There's no limits. I'm infinite. I can go anywhere. I can imagine anything. What can I not imagine? No limitation. Why? Because you're a creator. And you experience it all night long as your reality. And then you wake up and say, no, I'm not. This is not, I didn't do this. Yet you decided to come here. You created the experience. You are the experience. That's hard for us to grasp. We think experiences are happening to us, and I'm going to go over here and have an experience. No, you are the experience. And if you weren't here, and if you weren't there where you are, you wouldn't be having this experience. This experience actually doesn't exist unless you are participating in the creation of it. That takes a little flavor, a little different flavor based on who shows up and who's part of our experience tonight, right? Or your experience this morning, depending on where you are and when you are, right? But it's still now. No matter when you are watching this, it's now, right? Even time is a construct, a false construct. But we need time in order to sort out the illusion. So what if we could give this self, the sleeping self, and say, not guilty, it's just a dream. Even though there was some violence in there, we can let it go because we woke up and we realized it was just illusion. So was the violence real? No. So is there anybody that's acting improperly? Not really, because it's just a dream. Dreams have no effect, right? Dreams have no effect. So we could look at that and say that all of the events of the night, all of the events were absolutely neutral. Can we get away with saying that tonight? That all of my sleeping events are neutral. In other words, unless I start connecting dots and say, well, that means something, it really doesn't. It has no meaning except what I give it. All power under heaven and earth is whose? Yours. And what does that mean? It means you give everything all the meaning that it has. Scary. Can be, right? Because you can say that this experience is good, or you can say that this experience is bad. Or you can turn on the news on the way home and you can hear some news and you can say, oh, that's terrible. Or you can say, oh, that's good. Depending on which positionality you might have in the argument that may be going on in the news. Or you could be an enlightened master and say, it doesn't mean anything. How can I get hooked? If I'm walking through an insane asylum and I'm not the one that's insane. They're acting out, crazy making, but what would I expect when I'm walking through the middle of an insane asylum, right? Everything that's going on in the sleeping mind is really just kind of a crazy world made up of just imaginations, constructs, and thoughts and ideas. And you wake up and you don't hold anybody. If you killed somebody, you didn't get up this morning and go turn yourself into the police. Right? And what would they say? No, you didn't really kill anybody. The hard part, and what Jesus is teaching us in A Course in Miracles, is he says, that's also what's happening here. So the question goes back to, that you asked, which was a great question, is it appears that people are being violent. But there really aren't any people. You're not human. You're spirit. So nobody's really getting killed. Nobody's really being violent. It appears that way, and we can accept that as our reality. We can accept the dreaming self as a reality until we wake up. And Jesus is saying you can accept this as reality until you wake up, or you can wake up. And guess where you are when you wake up? Where you've been all along. Safe and home in bed. Safe and home in heaven. You never left. No place to go. Nothing to get. Just a little bit of a imagination. A dream of separation. So that's a little difficult to swallow, on first brush, right? A lot of people get caught up in A Course in Miracles in just the literal part of it when they read it, right? So what I try to share with people is the process that is being revealed to you through this teaching. So you'll let yourself off the hook. Did you judge anybody today for anything at all, period? I know you didn't. No, come on, no way. Right? Because why wouldn't you? Because that's what this self does. That's how it validates its existence. It's a thinking self. Here's the bad news. Sorry to lay this on you, but God didn't create you to be a thinker. Well, I got to think about that, right? So what are you going to do if you're not a thinker? What does that mean? When Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father, he wasn't sharing his thoughts. He was speaking as his higher self. The Creator's thoughts are all thoughts of love. They're not your thoughts. They're the thoughts of God. When you say, Father, thy will be done, you're really just saying, let your thoughts be my thoughts. In other words, I'm going to sit down and shut up. I'm going to close my mind. I'm going to tell this thinking self to get in the back seat of the bus. Get in the back. Get as far back, get so far back that I can't even hear you anymore because all you're doing is chatter, 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 judging, creating ideas and constructs that you telling me that, oh, this happened, and then this, and this, and this, and oh my God, I better watch out for my future based on the past. And I'm doing this, going back and forth in my mind, creating these crazy, crazy ideas, right? And all that this teaching is about is setting down, closing the mind to the outer world, and going within and getting in touch with your higher self. And allowing that voice to be your guide. And practice it, and practice it, and practice it to the point that when somebody asks you who you are, you say, well, when you see me, you see love. Because every response that you give to the world, every reaction is an extension of love. This self is always crying for love because it believes it's separate and that it was cast out, as the stories and the metaphors have argued for decades, if not decades, let's just say millenniums, right? That we were sinners and we cast ourselves, and that's all. Those are constructs of a little bit of an insane mind. I shouldn't say a little bit; it's actually quite insane, and it believes its own story. Especially if it was given down to us by someone in authority and somebody that we respected, right? And so, especially like an enlightened one like Jesus, who really just began to show us this and was teaching this, but people that were in power kind of took all this part out and then put themselves in there and said, well, if you want to get to God, you kind of got to go through us. And oh, by the way, you got to pay up because we got to be here. You got to give us some. You got to support us, right? That's not what he taught. He never taught that. I have nothing against any religion. All the religions are fantastic because at least it's a step. I had to go to the first grade before I could go to the second grade and third grade. I was glad there was no kindergarten when I was young, right? I'd start at the first grade, right? But I still had to get through that to get to the next step, get to the next step. And what A Course in Miracles and what Jesus is telling us and teaching us is that 2,000 years ago, we couldn't handle all of this conversation. We weren't even literate. As a population, the consciousness of the planet was strictly in the victim consciousness, very low. And so we were constantly in war. We were constantly in struggle and suffering. And even the construct of that we were taught then was, you need to make sacrifice for God. You need to make sacrifice. You shouldn't expect to be suffering. They even took the opportunity of Jesus' crucifixion and said, look what he did for you. He died for your sins. Yeah, you're not worthy. And you're like, well, hell, I just got here. I haven't done anything wrong yet as far as I know, right? It's all made up. So that's one of the very hard parts to get through when we start really graduating a little bit into a thought system of love, because it kind of begins to deny that this self and the beliefs that we've been given, that we've made commitment to, and that we hold very dear, I'm sorry to say, are not. It's kind of not really what's happening. Where does that take us? Hard to believe? Hard to grasp? I don't want to be here. I don't want to hear this conversation. How do you feel? You're being very quiet. There's only 300,000 people listening. I don't know why you wouldn't want to say something, right? We love you. Yeah, we know you're there. So, why don't we pick up the book and just talk a little bit. But I really want to give you guys a chance to, if there's any questions around this argument, around this narrative, because it's really a new narrative. I call it a true thought system because it's a system that never shifts up on you. It doesn't change up on you. The principles, you can apply them to every situation. We can look at something specific, but then we begin to see that it's specific, and so now it becomes general. I can generalize it into all of my experiences in the world. And wow, wouldn't it be nice to have a principle, and we like to call it practical principles, that you can take with you next week when you're at home, maybe, and there's a political argument going on around the Thanksgiving table, right? Or you're getting all of these people hammering you because, if you don't buy gifts and give to people, then you don't love those people. That's bullshit. That's just commercialism. That is the co-opting of the whole construct of love, and that's love made up in the mind of a mind that's insane. Because that's not what love is. Not at all. Love is being joined in spirit with love. It's being the echo of love. It's not thinking about love and trying to act loving. It is following the voice of God. It's being joined with spirit that's guiding you into how to respond in each and every moment to whatever's going on as an expression of love in form. Because you are the energy of the Creator in action in each and every moment. And you're always expressing either as thoughts of love that are coming through you, not your original thoughts, if you will. You begin to recognize they're not your thoughts. Or you're over here kind of trying to, make it work, make life work for you as a human being. But as we begin to create what I like to call as an access point, so our mind begins to flow in this direction, and we begin to stay joined more and more with this voice. That Jesus said, when this voice, or somebody said, it's biblical, when the voice that was in Jesus is in you. Well, it's your voice. He says that the Holy Spirit is nothing more than your right mind. It is you. Right? It is you. And so that voice then begins to guide, capital G guide, capital F friend, capital T teacher, capital V voice, capital C comforter. It begins to inform how you respond in the world. And what's the first step? The first step is to ask, are you there? For me, that's my two-step practice, right, is to say, I know I'm not alone, I'm not separate. So I go within, I turn within, I simply say, are you there? And I always get the answer. Well, of course, yes, I'm here. And so that starts the dialogue. Say, now, as soon as I ask that question, as soon as you ask that question, any question really, with your higher self, with your inner voice, you're joined. Instantly. Joined in conversation. Joined in dialogue. Now, keep it up, right? You may not feel like you're hearing something, or that voice or whatever's not answering, or maybe I'm not really sure, but you're hearing that all the time. You get all these intuitive hits all the time, right? All the time you're getting this little nudge to go that way, go this way. You might have gotten a nudge tonight or in the morning or whatever time it is for you. You might have gotten a nudge to go join with some other people and talk about some spiritual concepts and some spiritual principles. That's what we're talking about. That's being joined in mind. And sometimes we're not even conscious of it. You know, we think those are our thoughts. Where are we at so far? Scary? Too far out? What's your next question? What's another question? Yeah, we'll look at the book in a minute.
Is the thinking self, is this the ego? Because I know the ego knows there's something within you that's more powerful than it. It doesn't know what.
That's right.
But the spirit within you knows nothing of the ego. So would this be considered the ego self or the...
So you said a couple of things, and so I want to say absolutely, this is the ego. And if you're touring around in Nashville, you'll see these buses, and those buses say, we go. Because what happens when you're joined? It's not an I anymore. It's a we. So when you're ready to get on the bus and you're no longer riding by yourself, right? Now it's we go. No more ego. It's we go. Right? Now, the whole idea, if you will, of the Trinity, let's just say that there's God and the Holy Spirit and you. And it seems to be three separate entities, more or less, right? Let's go back to this sleeping self. Remember I said that all night long, the sleeping self is creating a construct of imagination, drama, 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 fun, 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 horror, 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 whatever it might be, right? Is it by itself? Let me ask another question. Is it you? Let me ask another question. Is it all of you? No, it can't be. Why? Because it doesn't even know you're safe and home in bed. It has no construct. It has no capacity. I've really been working on this because we got a new cat recently, and I'm trying to teach my cat to drive my car. So far, it's not working. Because I told it about, how the engine works and how the brakes and just. You can't teach a cat to drive a car. Why? It has no construct. It has no ability to conceive of that kind of a construct. Right? This self has no ability to conceive of the construct that it and you are one and you are safe and home in bed. Or in other words, it, a part of it at least, the bigger part of it, is safe and home in bed. And when you woke up, you knew exactly what you were going to do with your day. It didn't turn out exactly like you thought, but you had a good plan. You woke up and you knew where you were and what you were going to do with your day. Right? So, is this self alone? Can't be, because you were peering in all night long and you woke up and you could tell me what the dream was for a good 10 minutes or so, and then it fades off into nothingness because it is nothing. But if it had been exceptionally enlightening, like you had a lucid dream, and you said, I'm going to fly. What can I do? I have done that. It's amazing, right? You can fly. You can do anything. I found lately I can just kind of touch the ground and I can levitate and move across the room. It's really cool. And when that happens, I know that I'm sleeping because I know that there's a different, I'm actually becoming awake in the sleeping experience. Does that make sense? And that's called a lucid dream. So is this self all alone? Is it really separate? No, it can't be, right? Because you're there and you know what's going on. But is it conscious of you? No, not unless you really kind of shake it loose from its illusion, and then you get to play in that field of form. Yes? That dreamscape. Let's take it one step more. You think you're alone as ego. Oh. Your true self, nothing more than your right mind, your higher self, is watching all of it. But it knows, like when you woke up this morning, you knew it was illusion. Immediately, you knew it was illusion. Your higher self is looking at the life that this self, this ego, is living right now, and it knows you're walking through the middle of an insane asylum. You're making shit up. And because you are this powerful creator and thoughts are things, you're experiencing it as your reality. And you're creating these constructs like, this person likes me, and that makes me very valuable. And then this person doesn't like me, and that I don't have any self-worth. And it could be people that are close to us. They're the ones that really push our buttons, right? And it could be people that are far away from us, like the President of the United States. I mean, who gives a shit? Like you're going to go have dinner with it. Maybe you will. I won't. Don't think he knows who I am. Is ever going to call me? Doesn't matter. We make up all of these constructs about value in relationship. But the only relationship of any value at all is the relationship you have with what? Yourself. Your true self. It's on there somewhere. Your higher self. Maybe I didn't put it. Yeah, I did right there. The knowing self. This self is not deluded by illusion. It's not deluded by dreams. So you said something very important, and that was that spirit knows nothing of the ego. And I want to break through that construct, because the truth is, just like you are there all night long while the sleeping self is playing out its dramas, your higher self is here right now in this moment with us here right now. Every one of us can never, ever experience separation. You've never been alone. It's impossible for you to be alone. So when you say, are you there? Access point. You begin to have, if you persist, you begin to have experiences. And when you quit allowing yourself to be tripped up by these dots that we're connecting together, and you say, that's bullshit, I'm not giving any of that my attention. It's like Charlotte said in the Gone with the Wind, I'm going to worry about that tomorrow. All right? Just put it out of your mind. The only thing that this mind cannot defend itself against in all of its fear and guilt and craziness is, guess what? You ignoring it. Can you do that? Absolutely. How do I know that? Because when you're giving this mind your awareness, you're ignoring your higher self. There's no neutral. All right? You're either going towards insanity or you're going towards sanity. Does that make sense? And it's a choice. In every moment, I just simply say, are you there? And I ask a question, what's the truth? It's pretty simple. 2 statements. And here's the hard part. Don't fill in the blanks. Don't make shit up. Don't go into the thinking self and go, oh, I know what it's going to be like to be enlightened. You have no clue. Because this self, the sleeping self, cannot know the life you have right now. It's kind of stealing a little bit from it and making shit up all night long. Does that make sense? This self cannot imagine what this self is. It cannot. You can't take this self through the access point. Right? What was it? The threading a camel through the needle, or what was it? Something like that, right?
Easier for a rich man than in heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle.
Say that. Tell the audience at home that. Say that again. I'm not sure they can hear you. Hold it a little closer. They love you already.
Something to the effect that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yes. And the reason for that is because money can be very distracting, like a golden calf, right? It becomes something that this self gets focused on whatever's going on in the world, and it's turned it back on. It's ignoring its true self. And all you got to do is say, get thee behind me, right? I'm hanging out over here in Love Land, man, because Love Land is full of joy. It's awesome. And because thoughts are things, and our world is an experience of reflection, it's reflecting back. What kind of thoughts do you want to have anyway? Thoughts of fear, thoughts of judgment, thoughts of blame, thoughts of joy. Because what do you want coming back as an experience tomorrow, in the very next moment? I'd rather experience joy. So when we get into this mind and give it our awareness, see, you are the creator. You are the energy of the creator in action. You are an extension of the mind of God. You didn't create yourself, but all power in heaven and earth is yours to make your own mind up about what everything means. And so when you withhold judgment, when you withhold your own thinking, when you move it to the back of the bus and say, I'm not listening to that anymore, then you make a space where you can be informed and joined in mind with love. So what do you think your experience is going to be like tomorrow? Right? It just keeps getting better and better and better. That's right. It just keeps getting better. Merry Christmas. It's something to be thankful for. It's all about Thanksgiving. And true prayer is simply a song of gratitude, because you get it. And once you get it, there's nothing to do. Of Course in Miracles says you need do nothing. Oh, some people love that, and some people freak out when they hear that. What do you mean? I got this. There's a whole world to fix. Well, that's what you thought last night when you were running around in there, in the depth of your mind and your illusions, believing all that shit was real. And you're going to fix that up. So you can go back in there tonight and fix it up if you want to, or you can let it all go. Maybe tonight in your dreams, if you allow it to happen, you can create an access point within and just say, what's the truth? Can I be joined in mind with spirit at night? Absolutely. In fact, much more than in the daytime, because your constructs during the day, you're doing a lot more thinking. The world seems to be much more concrete. Pushing any buttons? Have you guys already been through all this? Crash course. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to just flip to... There's so much good stuff in here. Oh, I'm going to go to page 367 in the Black Pearl book. It's called Dreams and the Body. There is nothing outside you. When you're sleeping tonight and you're experiencing your dreamscape, is there anything outside you? It's all you. Every bit of it's you. Everything in it is you. Every person in it is you. One night, and I'll share this with you because it's fun. And I've shared this, maybe with you if you're watching at home. Maybe you've already heard me share this. But one night I was sleeping, And I used to be in the Navy, right? And so I was on ships and stuff like that. And here I am in my dream, and I'm on the back of this Navy ship. But we're in dock, we're in port. And so I see this other ship over here, and there's some guys over there, some other men over there. And so I'm like, well, I want to go, for whatever reason, I'm led to go there. And so I somehow step off the back of the fantail of the ship onto the water. And like Jesus, I'm walking on water. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. It was like a whale back there. And it was like a bladder or this whale-like skin, and I'm walking on it, and I'm just, and I'm dishing into the water, and I'm walking, and I'm like, wow, this is, and it dawned on me, guess what? This can't be real. And I began to have a lucid experience. I began to wake up in the dream. So next thing you know, I'm on this vessel, the next ship there. You know how dreams will just go, suddenly you just go from that place to that place, just boom, just like that. And so I'm there, and there's this sailor there, and I'm looking at him, and he's talking to me, and I'm like reflecting on that experience of walking over this whale back or this bladder or whatever's between these ships. And I thought, this is not, I'm dreaming. This isn't real. I mean, not really real. I'm dreaming. And my mind began to clear. And I looked at the sailor, and he's talking, and I thought, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know where he's from. This is my, and I don't know why I had that thought, but I did. And so I asked him, I said, so where are you from? Right? And this guy looks at me and he goes, "Ah, blah, 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 blah." And I started laughing because I'm realizing, guess what? This is all my mind. And so I asked him again. I said, where are you from? And he goes, blah, 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 blah. He couldn't say. And I had the thought, no kidding, I had this thought, and I thought, well, I don't know why I thought this thought. I thought, well, he doesn't even know he's from Portland, Oregon. And he blurts out, I'm from Portland, Oregon. Guess what I got out of that? He was never there. It was me, talking to me, putting my own thoughts in that mind of a construct of another body that I created out of whole cloth, out of nothing. There's nobody in there except you. There is nothing outside of you. There's not really anybody in your dream with you. It's you creating conversations with your own mind, with your own self. In this construct called, and that's just a sliver of your mind that you can do that with. So, there's nothing outside of you right now. Everything that you're experiencing is a construct within mind. This is the split mind, right? And the body is within it. It's almost like we could say a house. If we could say the house of God or the house of love or the heaven, and we could construct a house. If I had an eraser, I'd erase all that and do that. But then we could put this little house inside of it and say, okay, that's the house of fear. That's where this self lives. And it looks like a little dot compared to the house of love, the house of God, the house of truth. It's just a construct within of a little sliver of our mind. How amazing once we get this that we can, you step out. How do you step out? Join with your higher self. This self begins to inform your reality. Your mind begins to open up. Tina Louise Spalding, who has been channeling Jesus and Ananda. You can find her on YouTube. You can find her. She's channeled 6 books, but one of them was Jesus, My Autobiography. So Jesus literally channeled his life experiences through her in a very short, fairly easy to read book. I recommend that you get it. Jesus, My Autobiography. It kind of blow your mind a little bit, but anyway, he was sharing the story when he said, I don't know, he was channeling a lot when he was very young. His guides, his master, his guides, and when I say master, I mean teacher, right? Master teacher. They were channeling with him when he was very young, and back then, you would be, you were very, very something wrong. You were being possessed or whatever, if you were hearing voices. And there's a lot of that going around now, right? That's not a cool thing, right? I mean, there are places where, they got these rooms and these jackets and stuff that they'll put you in, if you're hearing voices. Right, anyway. So anyway, he said he had been in communication, right? And so he kind of got this nudge to go down to the river because John the Baptist was down there. He said, I don't even know. He said, I didn't even know why I was going, why. But he said, I needed, I knew I needed to go, and I was kind of being guided to go. Nudge, remember, the intuitive self. He was experiencing the same thing you're experiencing. And so he goes down there, and he gets in the line. So John the Baptist baptized him, and he said, when I came up, suddenly it's like the top of his head blew off. It's like, and this inrush of this knowing self just came in on him like a bolt of lightning. And he literally said he just, like, it knocked him, just knocked him out of, his ability to even walk. And he stumbles off in the woods from the river. And so he was assimilating all of this inrush of the knowing self. The sleeping self, the ego self, the mind, the ego literally just collapsed right then. So he goes out there in the woods and stumbles around for 3 or 4 weeks. And he almost, starved himself to death. Had a beard and he was just nasty. And he was trying to assimilate the construct of the knowing self as him in form. Okay? Which is the whole goal. That's why you came. That's why you came here, to have that experience, to join the team. And so he was married to Mary Magdalene. And anyway, so he said he was in such bad shape that he didn't go home immediately to her. He went to his mom's house because she would clean him up and kind of feed him and kind of get him back where he couldn't talk. He couldn't, he just knew he couldn't go home and try to explain to Mary why he'd been gone for 3 or 4 weeks, right? Especially in his haggard condition. So he went to his mom's, and she kind of nursed him back a little bit, and then he went home, right? But imagine then that's what, that's a pretty dramatic, that's kind of, to me, it's like, oh, you want to learn how to swim, we're going to take you on a helicopter, take you out to the middle ocean and drop you in. Oh, that'd be pretty scary, right? So that's not an experience I want to have, literally, right? I want to wade in on the shallow end and just, teach me to swim a little at a time. That's me, right? I'm a big coward, whatever. But the point is that this enlightenment, this experience of enlightenment, of opening up and waking up to our true self, this is what we are now moving into a time where more and more of us are becoming, that self, becoming the higher self, our true self, our right mind in form. And when you do, your consciousness just, it's like this huge shift in consciousness that can happen very, very quickly. And for most people, that's not, that's not necessarily what they might want. I mean, the people who come to mind would be people like, if you've heard of Eckhart Tolle, right? So that's kind of what his experience was. He was going to kill himself. And suddenly, in his mind, he's like, wait a minute, who is it that's saying that I need to kill myself? And who is it that's hearing that? It's like there's 2 selves in here. And suddenly, his ego collapsed. And the next morning, he woke up and everything's different. I mean, he was in love with a pencil. He was in love with a glass, and he went and sat on a park bench for weeks and weeks, and people just come around him and say, well, I don't know what you got, but I want that, right? Because they could feel the energy of that consciousness the higher consciousness is a vibration of love, right? And it has a field of influence, an attractor field as well, very, very powerful. So Eckhart Tolle is an example, and also Byron Katie is another example. And she does the work, if you followed any of her stuff, great stuff. And so these are people that have kind of slam dunked, go to the bottom of the barrel, and then, you have that experience of enlightenment. But a lot of other people have gotten to the bottom of the barrel and take themselves out. I don't want to go to the bottom of the barrel, and that's why this book is here today. so that we can wade in from the shallow end, right, and learn how to swim our way through. So there is nothing outside you. That is what you must ultimately learn, for it is in that realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. This is you waking up, becoming lucid in form in the dream of illusion to your true self, your true reality. That's enlightenment, right? So as the jiu-jitsu master that we deemed you to be, I would imagine that would be part of your practice as a master, would be meditation or a practice of containment of thought, so that we're not reacting inappropriately to whatever's presenting itself through other brothers and sisters in our environment, right? It's a thought system. Does that make sense? It's a thought system. So this is our thought system of love, thoughts of God, spirit, love. And this is a thought system over here of fear, guilt, separation. You don't remember that you're safe at home in bed, the sleeping self doesn't remember that this self is safe at home in bed, and this self doesn't remember that you're already in the kingdom of heaven right now, right? You're walking through your own consciousness. When you're sleeping at night, isn't that what you're doing? You can get it, right? Because when you wake up, you can realize, that's like I was walking through my own consciousness in this constructs of form. Same thing. Just take it to the next level. For God created only this, the kingdom of heaven. God only created. Who created the world then? Who creates the world you're sleeping in? You do. Right? You're the creator. Thoughts are things. God didn't make the world so you can let him off the hook now. Why would God create violence in the world? He didn't. He didn't create the world. You did. Why are you creating violence in the world? That's the question this takes you to, you see? This takes you back to self-responsibility. When have I held a thought of harm, anger, hatred, or murder? Have you ever wanted to murder somebody? Of course you have. Has anybody ever wanted to murder you? Of course they have. Have you pissed people off that much? Well, of course you have. You may not recognize it. You may not always be conscious of it. But it's like, I hate that person, right? And then we ask, why is there so much violence in the world? The question is, why is there so much violence in the world that we're creating? Because we keep holding the ideas that we can be harmed. We keep holding ideas of that we're physical bodies, that we can be victims and other people are being victimized. Those are constructs that are playing back. And then we create movies around violence. We create games, video games around violence. Drama, drama, drama. Violence, violence, violence. So are we getting to an answer of that question? It's not God's fault. Let him off the hook. God chooses not to dream. And what are you doing? Sound asleep. Safe at home in heaven, dreaming of being not in heaven, in a separate world where there's violence. That doesn't mean that we're going to guilt ourselves out, because that's right back into this ego mind. Oh, it's your fault. You're guilty. No. That's not it. When you wake up, you let the sleeping self off the hook because you say you're innocent because it never happened. That's forgiveness. Think about it. Moving back before you gave judgment. There was really nobody there but you, and you're really innocent. You were just making shit up. Right? I was making up the sailor on the boat. I was making up the idea that I could walk on the whale's back between these two ships. It was all my construct. Innocent by reasons of insanity, because nothing ever really happens in the nightmare of someone who's insane. The same thing is like easily, also not easily, but should be attributed to things like, I just won $1 million. Yay, I'm going to win. I'm going to win the game. That's not how you win the game. You can only win the game by rejoining with your higher self, right? You ever seen the game Jumanji? I talk about that a lot, right? Jumanji is this video it's a movie. I think there's the third iteration, I think, is coming out later this year. But anyway, once you get in the game, you can't get out. until you figure out how to get to the end of the game, the next level, next level, next level. So we got these games, right? Level up, level up, level up, and eventually you can win the game, right? The only way to win this game of separation is for you to remember your true self, and then you wake up, right? But every time in the video, in the movie Jumanji, every time somebody dies, suddenly they're right back. And well, I don't believe in reincarnation. Well, you don't have to, but you're here right now. And you can't win the game until you wake up, level up to your higher self, your true self. Okay? God created only this, the kingdom of heaven. He did not depart from it, nor leave it separate from himself. So this sleeping self over here and all of his constructs are not separate from you. It didn't depart, and you didn't go into the dream. It's just a construct of imagination. The kingdom of heaven is the dwelling place of the children of God who left not their Father and dwell not apart from him. You can't, see, this is like the kingdom of heaven. You cannot be separate from God. But God is not participating in your dream. So when my daughter was younger and she was having a nightmare, and I mean, I got a choice, right? Let's just say it was possible that I could go in there and be in the dream with her. I could go in there as a good father and fix the dream. Or maybe I could just shake her a little bit and say, wake up, honey. That's illusion. There's nothing to fix. Right? So when we say God, why would God allow all this violence to be in the world? And God's like, I'm not dreaming. Wake up, son. What happens to the dream when you wake up? It's nothing. It never was. Nothing to forgive. Nobody got hurt. You created an experience out of pure imagination, and part of that experience was based in fear and guilt. What do you expect to experience when your construct is fear and guilt? Fear and guilt. What do you expect to experience when your construct is love? A lot of joy and bliss. Abundance. Right? No lack, no scarcity, no illusion, no struggle, no suffering, no sacrifice. None of that shit. That's all over here. And it's not real. So how do we get out of it? Win the game. And I've already shared with you. Practice the two-step. One, take a good deep breath. For me, let's do that right now. Then I ask the question, are you there? And allow that voice to inform you. You know you don't feel alone in that moment. Immediately you can feel it. You've never been alone. And then, to me, it's like, what's the truth here? And then the hard part for me is to shut up, right? To just stay there in silence. So my part of my practice is I like earplugs, right? I like blackout curtains. I like no electronic instruments in my space. And I can set up, right? Maybe put a little blanket over my shoulders or whatever and get comfortable in my bed. Man, I can get quiet. And that chatterbox mind, it just slips off into the back. And I can get connected with this feeling, this beautiful energy of nourishment, this energy of love and acceptance, infinite mind. It's all there. It's available as an experience, a uniquely different experience than separation. Yes? Heaven's not a place nor a condition. It's merely an awareness of perfect oneness. So we've moved from a two-ness, right? Separate self, higher self. Remember? Higher self, you and God. This was in my example tonight. This is you. This is the higher self. And God is the awakened self. All of it, right? They're all constructs. There's only one mind. We move from where we're going is from duality, two-ness. Ultimately, we slip back into oneness, right? And even the construct of the Holy Spirit being separate from God is illusion. You and God are one. So we move towards oneness. So heaven's not a place. nor a condition. It's merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness, and nothing else within. You and God are one. We only got through a paragraph so far. What could God give but knowledge of himself? What else is there to give? The belief that you could give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and the loss of your identity, capital I identity. And you have done a stranger thing than you yet realize. You've created a world out of imagination. So what do you think about this so far? More study. More study. The stuff keeps me up at night, you know, and I've been studying it for going on. Well, A Course in Miracles was published in 1975, right around there. Before that, for me, in my study, in my pathway, I studied Buddhism for a while. And then the Course came along. And I guess for me, it brought me back from, because I didn't feel a real connection with Buddhism, not that I gained tremendous insight from the study of Buddhism because it's very practical in its presentation. And Buddha was around for like 40 years teaching. So his teaching is one of the purest teachings of our historical theologies. But when I found A Course in Miracles, really it brought me back to Jesus, but in a way that I had never really experienced Jesus. And Jesus really is, all I'm experiencing in this is that Jesus is like you and I, you know, we're brothers and sisters in family, we're family, that we're all the same. And so it's really tears down that separation idea that Jesus was a God and separate and something that we could never be. No, he was just like us, you know, and human in form, and then he had an experience of enlightenment. And so after that, he simply was pointing to that, and the ability that we all have to become and be enlightened. He was pointing to that. It was kind of taken, it was whitewashed, cleaned, and manipulated. And then his teaching was used to keep others in control through fear and war and all the things that go with that. But the Jesus that I find in A Course in Miracles is the brother Jesus, not a God separate, not something different. But as he said, even the least among you will do more than I, he was really pointing out that you and he are not, there's nothing different. So I know sometimes people are, in this day and age, with all of the conditioning that we've had over all these years through institutionalized theology, Jesus kind of got a bad rap, right? A lot. And even God, you know, being vengeful and wrathful and judgmental, and you know, and we were talking earlier about, you know, how would you treat your child if they did something wrong? Would you punish them to hell forever and ever? You know, you were like, no, I would still love them. I would never not love them. And those are symbolic, metaphoric, but also examples of the truth of who we are in God. God would never love us less than we would love our children. Those are all just symbols of the love of God that we have for our children. So this is letting God off the hook for the question that you asked tonight, which is a great question. You know, why would God allow a world to be so violent? God's got nothing to do with it. God knows it's a construct within our minds that we join together in a construct of illusion based in fear and guilt as an experience, right? And if God were to say that you are, let's just put it this way, if God were to say that you are so weak and different than he is as a creator, an all-powerful, omniscient, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent creator, well, if you put yourself in it, you can take yourself out. When you fall asleep at night, who wakes you up? You wake yourself up, right? Just because you're in a dream doesn't mean you can't wake up, but you're the one that created the illusion of dream, so you're the one that has to, God's doesn't need to rescue you because God knows that you're already perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. And it's well within your power, right, to wake up. So is this making sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is this making sense? So it kind of lets God off the hook. It also lets you off the hook, right? Because we've created all these constructs and we begin to say, wait a minute, it's just illusion. I can let go of my attachment to it, right? And if I and my brothers and sisters are all one in God, and if God is loving every one of us equally as these perfect creations, and all we ever really need to do to recognize the love that God has for us is to begin to love our brothers and sisters and begin to experience the union and the joy that's already available to us in spirit, in love, as we become this expression of ourself. We could say we become our very best self, but the truth is we become our perfect self. There is no best and perfect. There just is. There just is. The energy of the Creator in action is exactly what we are. So we'll close with that because we're about there. And I want to close with a prayer. We talked tonight about lots of things, and we kind of keep going over it again and again. So I feel like I sound like a broken record a lot. But that's okay, because the teacher's the learner, and every time I get a chance to teach this, I get a little bit more of it. I get to grasp it a little bit more profoundly, a little deeper. So I want to say thank you for being there. I want to say thank you guys for being here and being a part of my dream tonight, right? So let's take a good deep breath, and we're going to close with a prayer. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, forgiveness is literally just moving back before we gave judgment, moving back before we developed a construct, experienced a construct out of fear and guilt, an illusion. And the illusion itself is not real, so we can let that go. Forgiveness, then, is the vehicle. Forgiveness ends the dream of conflict here. Conflict must be resolved. It cannot be evaded, set aside, denied, disguised, seen somewhere else, called by another name, nor hidden by deceit of any kind, if it would be escaped. It must be seen exactly as it is, where it is thought to be, in the reality which has been given it, and with the purpose that the mind anchored it. For only then are its defenses lifted, and the truth can shine upon it as it disappears. Father, forgiveness is the light you chose to shine away all conflict and all doubt, and light the way for our return to you. No light but this can end our evil dreams. No light but this can save this world. For this alone will never fail in anything, being your gift to your beloved children. So the truth is the truth. It doesn't change up on you. It's clear in its presentation, its love, in its embrace, and its forgiveness, and its recognition that dreams have no effect. So I want to say thanks again for joining us tonight. It's Brother T. We're going to sign off and wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and hope you'll come back. We won't have a group next week because of Thanksgiving, but we'll catch up in a couple of weeks, and it's truly been my honor and my blessing to be with you tonight. So thanks so much, and thank you for being here as well. Good night.